Hey guys, Will here, and welcome back to the next part of my Across the Program series, where I take you across multiple programs. And let's say Substance Painter doesn't really fit your style. Maybe you want to try a different way of creating textures. Well, look no further than Substance Alchemist. Substance Alchemist is a completely different program in the Substance series, where you can take pre-existing textures and add some nice detail to them to give maybe that kind of look you're going for. And the tutorial I'm going to do today in this one is I'm going to create an asphalt that looks like it's been worn down from like weathering. So as you can see, we have our viewport here, and I'm going to go ahead and stick with the plane. But if you wish to do other kinds of filters or different kinds of shapes, you always come over here to your viewer settings, and you can set your mesh to something of your choosing. So maybe people might prefer to do a cloth or a sphere or a rounded cylinder as it is. But I'm going to go ahead and do a plane because I'm working on like a groundish kind of texture. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go back to our resources, and these are all of our different base materials that we can work with to create some nice looking textures. And we have all these different. So what we're going to work with is we're going to start with asphalt, and you can go ahead and left click and drag onto our hierarchy right here. Now, as you can kind of tell, it looks pretty good, but when you get closer, you can kind of realize how like high this is. We don't want it to be this bumpy. It looks a little too much. So what we have is we have parameters over here on the right hand side that allow us to change some of this. So what we can do is we can open up our technical parameters right here, and we can move this height position down a bit and the height range and get closer to something that we want. Maybe about right here, 0.3, maybe a bit higher. We could also maybe change the gravel roundness, give it a bit more flatness in these areas over here. Maybe we can decrease the pebble amount, decrease the dirt, or add some more dirt. Maybe add some more. There we go, more flattened area. Look at that. So now we got these nice little areas right here that are kind of cracked, and then you got the areas that are kind of smooth. So we can mess around maybe a little bit with the height range, just a bit more. And this is all up to you, but I'm just giving myself my base texture to look at this. I might add the height range just a bit higher, about right there. So we have some nice little divots. Like I like what's going on right here. Like we got the outside areas being kind of flat, but then we got these nice little cracks. Now, this is one of our textures, but what we can do is we can actually add more materials onto pre-existing materials. So let's go ahead and take a rust. Let's go ahead and add that to our material. And it gives us a nice sense to see where the height is, because that is filling into the height. Like if you notice, like if I go to my technical parameters and I take this height position and I move it all the way down, it completely disappears. And if I move it all the way up, it completely takes over because of the height position that I have it. So if I want to give it some like nice wear and tear, I can probably move it, I would say about a little less than halfway, like 0.48, like this, just to give it that little weathering that you might see on a concrete sidewalk. That nice little dirty detail. And actually what we could do, we could take this rust color and maybe darken it a little bit towards the darker side like that. Press OK. And I like that. It's kind of a muddy dark brown on a concrete background. And a really, really cool one we can do for substance is we actually have layers, and layers can give us more details. And one cool layer that I like to use is called a water node. So if we go up to our layers, you can press add layer, and we're going to type in water. Water is a node that will allow us to place a reflective material into our texture and give it that idea that there's water just mismatched in the areas in the cracks. So you can already see a little bit of it, but we're actually going to go ahead and bring that up with our height. So if we find our height properties, we should be able to bring it up like that. Sorry, it's the water level, not height. So this is way too much, obviously. So we're going to go ahead and bring that down probably to about right. Keep going. Say about right there. As you can see, the water is kind of filling up in these cracks, and it's giving it that extra detail of the water kind of rising up, and you can see it's very reflective. We actually maybe want to move it up just a bit more to get like the public. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. Looks great. Very, very easy. If you notice, we've only used 3 layers just to create this texture on Alchemist. It's a very simple way to make some nice looking textures, and you can do whatever you want. Maybe if you want, you can even add a marble texture to it and give it like defined cracks. Let's see how this looks once we add the marble texture. Maybe we can take our technical parameters, move this height range down a little bit, maybe down just a bit more, and get like these little side crack areas. Maybe we bring the position down just a bit. We can see about right there. Now we have our water. We have a reflective water. Actually, we'll bring the one thing to make sure that they need to make sure about when it comes to Substance Alchemist is that these layers are ordered. So if you put water underneath everything, it's going to reflect that color, and it's going to be hidden in a really ugly way. So if you notice, there's no more reflective water because it's hidden underneath all of our layers. Now, obviously, since I added this marble layer, the water rose, so we're going to go ahead and readjust that. We're going to bring it back down, probably about right there. And yeah, that looks pretty good. I like that. It gives us like a really like messed up texture of like this is whittled down or eroded concrete that you might see on some kind of place out there. And when we're done, we can always come up here to our export. You can export your current view, and we can call this a tutorial concrete, and then we can save it as an SBSAR, which is actually something that we can use for our scenes in Unreal. So I'm going to go ahead and set that to my final materials, and I can set this as an SBSAR, and I'll set the resolution to 2048, and I will go ahead and export that. And it's exporting all of the maps like we discussed in previous episodes, where there's the normal, the height, the base color, the roughness, the ambient occlusion. It's exporting every single one of those textures into an SBSAR file, which we can actually apply into Unreal. And I will do that in the next video.